For most of human history, the pharmacy was the kitchen. A jar of raw honey, a braid of garlic hanging by the stove, a bottle of vinegar steeping with roots and herbs on the windowsill. Your grandmother probably had a version of it. Her grandmother certainly did. One recipe, passed hand to hand across generations, kept families off the doctor's table through winters, plagues, and poverty. It cost almost nothing. It required no prescription. And it worked so well that in 2012, a corporation tried to trademark it. The herbalist community erupted. Lawsuits flew. The fight that followed exposed exactly why the pharmaceutical industry needs you to forget that your kitchen already contains a medicine cabinet. So why did we abandon a remedy that worked for centuries? The answer isn't just about modern medicine replacing old traditions. It's about what happens when a free cure collides with a business model built on repeat prescriptions. Stick around because the science behind this remedy's key ingredient has been shown in clinical trials to kill antibiotic-resistant bacteria, including MRSA. And the woman who created this specific version in the 1970s was nearly erased from its history by a company that wanted to own what she gave away for free. If you want forgotten healing wisdom backed by modern science every week, subscribe now. You do not want to miss what is coming. The recipe is called Fire Cider, and its story begins with a woman named Rosemary Gladstar. In 1978, Gladstar was teaching herbalism out of a small school in rural Sonoma County, California. She was not a doctor, she was not a chemist. She was a grandmother figure with dirt under her nails and a conviction that the most powerful medicine was not locked behind pharmacy counters. It was already growing in the garden or sitting in the pantry. That winter, she started teaching her students a recipe she had assembled from generations of folk knowledge, a tradition stretching back to medieval Europe's Four Thieves vinegar, a garlic and herb tonic that legend claimed protected grave robbers from plague. Gladstar's version was specific: raw apple cider vinegar, fresh garlic, horseradish root, onions, ginger, hot peppers, raw honey. Everything roughly chopped, packed into a mason jar, covered with vinegar, and left to steep for 4 to 6 weeks. The result was a pungent, fiery tonic that tasted like it meant business. She called it Fire Cider. And then she did something that no pharmaceutical company would ever do. She gave the recipe away freely to everyone. She printed it in her books, taught it at every workshop, shared it in newsletters that reached thousands of homes. For over 30 years, the recipe spread through the herbalist community like a folk song. No one owned it, everyone adapted it. Grandmothers added turmeric, homesteaders threw in rosemary or elderberry. The recipe belonged to the kitchen, not to a corporation. But here's what Gladstar didn't fully know at the time. Every single ingredient she'd chosen had specific biochemistry that modern researchers would spend decades confirming. The kitchen intuition of generations turned out to be precision medicine hiding in plain sight. And the proof is staggering. Start with garlic, the backbone of the recipe. When you crush a garlic clove, an enzyme called alliinase converts allicin into allicin. That reaction is the reason crushed garlic smells so much stronger than a whole clove. Allicin is a broad-spectrum antimicrobial, active against bacteria, viruses, fungi, and parasites. A study published in the Journal of Antimicrobial Chemotherapy showed allicin is effective even against strains resistant to pharmaceutical antibiotics. One clinical trial found that daily garlic supplementation reduced the frequency of common colds by 63% and shortened recovery time by 70%. Those are peer-reviewed, placebo-controlled results. But garlic alone doesn't explain why fire cider works the way it does. The extraction medium matters. Raw apple cider vinegar, the solvent that pulls every compound into solution over 4 to 6 weeks, contains acetic acid with its own documented antimicrobial properties. Studies show it inhibits E. coli, Staphylococcus aureus, and Candida species on contact. But here is the detail most people miss. Vinegar also improves metabolic function. A study published in Diabetes Care found that vinegar consumption before a high carbohydrate meal reduced post-meal blood sugar by 34% in insulin-resistant subjects. Your grandmother wasn't thinking about insulin resistance. She just knew a tablespoon of vinegar before dinner kept people feeling right. The mechanism was working whether she could name it or not. Now, add horseradish root. This is where the formula gets genuinely extraordinary. Horseradish contains sinegrin, a glucosinolate that converts to allyl isothiocyanate on contact with tissue. That compound is one of the most potent natural antibacterials ever tested. German physicians do not treat this as folklore. They still prescribe horseradish-based preparations for urinary tract and respiratory infections today under the trade name Anguzin. Clinical trials published in the journal Arzneimittelforschung show Anguzin performs comparably to standard antibiotics for uncomplicated urinary tract infections, with fewer side effects and no contribution to antibiotic resistance. A kitchen route competing with pharmaceutical antibiotics in clinical trials. That is not a grandmother's tale, that is a medical finding, Ginger adds another layer. Gingerols and Chagals have documented anti-inflammatory effects that rival ibuprofen in some studies, plus antiemetic properties so reliable that oncologists recommend ginger for chemotherapy-induced nausea. Hot peppers bring capsaicin, which increases circulation and opens airways. Onions contribute quercetin, a polyphenol with powerful anti-inflammatory and antihistamine effects shown in clinical trials to reduce blood pressure and calm inflammatory pathways. Raw honey seals the entire formula. Its hydrogen peroxide activity, low pH, and a protein called defensin-1 create a triple antimicrobial effect. Studies show this is effective even against methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, known as MRSA, the superbug hospitals struggle to control. The honey also makes the tonic palatable enough to take daily, which matters more than most people realise. The best medicine in the world is useless if it sits in the cabinet untouched. Each ingredient alone is clinically validated. Combined in an acidic extraction over weeks, they create something no single pharmaceutical replicates. A broad-spectrum antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, immune-stimulating, metabolically supportive compound, made from kitchen scraps for pennies in a mason jar. So the question that should keep you up at night is this: if the science is this strong, why did we stop making it? The first answer is economics. By the mid-20th century, the pharmaceutical industry had perfected a business model built on patented compounds, standardized doses, and monthly refills. Every cold, every flu, every minor infection became a transaction. Over-the-counter cold medicines that suppress symptoms without addressing infection generate over $10 billion annually in the United States alone. A kitchen remedy that costs almost nothing, requires no prescription, and lasts for months is not a competitor in this marketplace. It's a threat to the model itself. You cannot patent garlic, you cannot charge a subscription for apple cider vinegar, and you cannot build a billion-dollar brand on something a grandmother gives away for free. But the second answer is more specific and more disturbing. In 2012, a small Vermont company called Shire City Herbals filed a trademark on the words fire cider. They began selling a commercial version of the recipe that Rosemary Gladstar had given away freely for over 3 decades. When other herbalists and small producers used the term on their own products, Shire City sent cease and desist letters. The community was blindsided. A recipe that had been public knowledge, taught in workshops, printed in books, and shared across kitchen tables for an entire generation was suddenly claimed as private property. Gladstar and thousands of herbalists fought back. The Free Fire Cider movement launched protests, petitions, and legal challenges. Gladstar herself testified that she had coined and freely distributed the term since the 1970s, long before Shire City existed. The case dragged through the legal system for 7 years. During that time, small herbalists were intimidated out of selling, teaching, and even naming the remedy their grandmothers had made. A kitchen tradition was being turned into corporate intellectual property in real time. In 2019, the trademark was finally cancelled after the community proved the term was generic and had been in widespread public use for decades. The recipe was free again. But the episode revealed something important. It showed exactly how quickly a free remedy can be captured, rebranded, and walled off from the people who created it. And it showed that the only reason it did not stick was because one community fought back hard enough. Most did not. Most kitchen remedies simply faded away, replaced not by something better, but by something more profitable. The recipe is still free. Making it is almost embarrassingly simple. Roughly chop a head of garlic, a large onion, a chunk of fresh horseradish root, a thumb of ginger, and 1 or 2 hot peppers. Pack everything into a quart-sized mason jar. Cover completely with raw, unfiltered apple cider vinegar. Seal with a non-metal lid. Plastic works, or use wax paper under a metal ring. Let it steep in a cool, dark place for 4 to 6 weeks and shake it daily. After steeping, strain through cheesecloth, stir in raw honey to taste and bottle. A tablespoon daily through cold and flu season. 2 tablespoons at the first sign of illness. That's how Gladstar taught it. That's how grandmothers used it. And that's how the clinical evidence on each ingredient suggests it works best. Daily, preventive, consistent, not reactive, not after the infection has taken hold, but before it gets the chance. 1 jar lasts months. The ingredients cost less than a single pharmacy copay. Unlike most over-the-counter cold medicines, which suppress symptoms without touching the underlying infection, Fire Cider supports your immune system's own response. It does not do the work for your body. It gives your body the tools to do the work itself. For most of history, this was how medicine worked. Not in labs, not in factories, in kitchens, hands chopping garlic, vinegar steeping on the windowsill. Knowledge passed from mother to daughter to granddaughter without a prescription pad or a profit margin in sight. The pharmaceutical industry did not replace that tradition because it failed. It replaced it because it could not be monetized. And when someone tried to monetize it anyway, a community of grandmothers, herbalists, and kitchen healers fought for 7 years and won it back. The kitchen still works, the science proves it, and the recipe is yours. It always was. Leave a comment and tell me, are you Team Fire Cider, Team Raw Honey, or Team Garlic solves everything? I read every single comment. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button and ring the bell. We post every week, and we are just getting started. See you in the next one.